secure my future financial freedom. That's interesting. All right, from Austin, it says, is this program only for pastors? No, not only for pastors. Okay, it's for everyone who wants to invest and secure their future. So it's for everyone, not only for pastors. So you are also welcome to the program. Austin, you're welcome. Okay, for Charles, it says, strategy for property auctioning or acquisition. Okay. All right. For Kelvin, it says heightened understanding of how churches can benefit from real estate investment. That's beautiful. And then for Anthony, it says to learn more about land banking and secure my financial future. Oh, that's nice. Okay. For Christopher, said, I desire to have my dream homes and secure financial freedom. That's good. And then for Igodaro, said, learn about church investment. Okay. For Emmy, said, to have more real estate knowledge as a pastor. All right. More are coming in. That's good. For David Adeleke, said, hi, good evening, everyone. Good to see you, sir, Dr. Stephen Akintayo. My expectation is to catch up on real estate opportunities and how it affects and benefits the church. Okay, that's good. For Mr. Frank, said to have mastery on real estate investment and how churches can benefit. Okay, for Mr. I can't say the name clearly, Adamu, to obtain strategies for property acquisition. Okay, that's good. For Mr. Austin, said to knowledge of running a real estate firm. Beautiful. Your expectations are very interesting to note. And I want to assure you that you have signed into the very right program this evening, Nigerian time. And everything you need to know about investment in real estate, you will learn and get from this program. So that we don't take further time, I'll be going straight to introduce to you our distinguished host and speaker for this program in the person of the chairman, founder of GTEX Holdings and the Stephen Akintayo Foundation, Dr. Stephen Akintayo. We take the center stage now and we begin the program right away. Once again, I want to say thank you for joining in. And at the end of the program today, I would like to also share with me if your expectations have been met or exceeded. And then you share with me 2 or 3 key learning points that you are taking away with you from this program that you are going to implement in your various ministries or churches or business. And then some months after this program, I would like you to get across to us and tell us how well you are able to implement the lessons you will get from this program and the benefits it has in your financial future as a pastor, as a business person, in whatever capacity you are being represented in this program. So once again, please, let's all receive with a virtual clap our host and speaker for today, Dr. Stephen Akintayo. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. Thank you for the warm welcome. I want to welcome every one of you joining from all over the world. Thank you for being part of today's meeting. Yes, it's our first time doing real estate investment for churches. And the idea came when I was in London and I met the first speaker for today. He has worked with over hundreds of churches in the UK, helping them to buy properties and he has special strategies of converting old buildings, old public buildings, to churches, to venues where churches can meet, and how to acquire properties that can then be converted for assets for ministries. And while we got talking, I said, you know what, this is something needed globally, not just by pastors in UK, ministries in the US, ministries in Nigeria, ministries in Canada, all over the world, particularly of people of color that are struggling to really build assets for their ministry. And we can have those conversations on how to put those structure in place. So we will be having him as the first speaker, and he will be sharing in detail some of what he's been able to do, some of the programs they have. And then after his session, I will also come on board and share with us a few models that ministries can adopt, can imbibe, can pick up to build wealth. And I've said this, that if, wealth creation starts, publicly before privately, how do I mean? When you are part of a nation that is wealthy, the chance that you will be wealthy is higher. When you're part of a ministry that is wealthy, the chances that you will be wealthy is higher. People ask me, where do I get audacity for real estate from? And I tell them it's my local church, right? After Catholic in Nigeria, Winners Chapel arguably has the highest level of assets in terms of real estate assets. And so when I saw that with my own spiritual mentor, it was easy for me as an entrepreneur to be able to dream that big. Okay, so a lot of ministers need to know that the appetite of the ministry to build wealth for the ministry goes beyond just helping the ministry. It emboldens the members to also dream big, build big businesses, build big institutions, and gives the audacity. And we all come from a part of the world where there is a clamor, there is a cry for churches to play bigger roles in social development. How many of you agree with me? Right? There is a cry for ministries to play a bigger role in social transformation in Africa. People are tired of seeing bigger churches and not seeing bigger businesses. And I think the journey starts with, ministry getting their own finances right. Now, I have happened to pastor before, so I understand that as much as people complain about ministers and ministries, they don't know that even ministries are struggling too. Okay. Churches are also struggling with issues of finances. So when you are not telling a pastor who hasn't really done business before to begin to help members create more businesses, it becomes quite difficult. And that's why we feel conversations like these are important. We need to begin to work with pastors to say, how do we get the ministry finances right? Okay, I think I did something with P. Daniel some time ago for young pastors. And we talked about how young ministers can begin to build their own personal wealth. I mean, I was humbled when P. Daniel reached out to me and said, Dr. Stephen, I need you to mentor me when it comes to this subject of wealth. I know fire. I can bring down fire. But the subject of wealth is something I haven't gotten right. And I was quite humbled that he did that. And gradually I said, you know what, can we do this beyond just you in person? Can we work with other young pastors to begin to see how we can help them, build wealth for themselves? Because and that's why I authored the book, The Billionaire Habit for Pastors. You can't give what you don't have. If a pastor only rely on prophet offering and salary, that's called self-employment, right? He himself cannot easily raise people who will think entrepreneurship, who will think business, who will think investment. It will be difficult because he can't give what he doesn't have. So for me, it was very important to say, how do we work with pastors? But now we're saying, how do we even work with ministries to begin to acquire assets? So I'm super excited with our first speaker, like I said, because he's done that for hundreds of churches, and he's going to speak for himself, Mr. Somi Adegoke. Incidentally, the two of us are pastors in our local churches. We didn't start any ministries. We're apostles in the marketplace, but in our local ministries, we're ordained pastors there. And so we kind of understand the both sides. We understand the arguments by, people saying, hey, we need ministers, we need ministries, to play bigger roles in terms of apostles in the marketplace, in terms of social transformation. We get that because we are in the marketplace. We also understand the challenges ministers are facing, right? Because we've also had to pastor churches where there's no money. We are not paid even as pastors. We had to build church building for the ministry. We had to gather, small members to try and raise funds, to get our church property, so we get it. And I think we both felt when we met that, you know what, we have something to really offer the body of Christ, and with what God has done in our lives, we can really work with a lot of ministries. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Somi Adegoke, CEO, Realboard Property Group, UK. Thank you, my brother. Take it away.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for having me on your platform, and thank you for following the instruction of God to create this wonderful opportunity to enlighten, share more insight on real estate investment for churches in the UK. My name is Somi Adegoke. I'm the CEO of Realboard Property International. It's no longer international. It's a group of companies now. So let me correct that. Realboard Property Group, which I will explain a lot about what we've been able to do. But just a little background information of how we started this journey. When God gave us this vision, it was about the kingdom. And I remember this word particularly. It was all about seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and every other thing will be added. So the mandate was given to us over a decade ago to see that we can support the body of Christ in the UK. And over that period of time, God has helped us in understanding the process of what it takes into ownership, what it takes to understanding how church can effectively grow from one branch to 10 to 20. And we've seen the massive growth over the years with our different church clients in the UK. And also not just the church clients, we've also seen how people have a strategy of creating wealth through real estate. Doctor said something about the Catholic Church, for example. In the UK, one of the biggest landlords in the UK are the Church of England. The second after the Church of England are the Catholic churches in the UK, going to the Methodist churches, going across different charities and churches that understand the foresight of laying claim on property ownership. And I'll be explaining this in my presentation about how you can do this, how you can achieve this, and how God can help you as a church from the little wisdom, the little know-how, the little understanding of how you can grow this. And also how we as a business, we've been able to grow from just owning one asset, not even owning one asset, from zero asset to close to about 40 million pounds of assets under management as a business. So I'll share with you this slide on Realboard Property International. Just watch this video as we go along. One major challenge within our community is the lack of education around investment. My name is Somi Adegoke. I'm the CEO of Realboard Property International, a real estate firm based in London. I'm a firm believer after reading through one of my favorite books, which is called The Rich Dad Poor Dad, which taught me about investment, property investment, knowing what to really do
in impacting community. And that's what our business has done over the years, impacting the community. There's always a story behind everything. I've always looked at real estate from a young age as this will be the secret of creating this wealth. The only thing that is new in the world where countries, billionaires, millionaires, everyone investing is real estate. Orchid Place, it's a very, very, very beautiful, old church building full of so much history. Just around the corner of the famous Oakham Road in South London. And this building had over 25 squatters when we were trying to buy the building. And we were able to get rid of the squatters. And now, part of what we have under management is that building where we've leased out to churches.
I'm Rachel Lawal, and I am the Business Operations Manager for Reba Baker Property International. The square footage for Oakley Place is about 12,000. We originally bought it for just under 2 million. With the renovations that we've got going on and the fact that we've got a tenant, it's now worth just over 5 million, and that's within a very short space of time. And that's one of the reasons why we actually get buildings like this. It's really great for churches. This is a really good investment for churches. It's something that they don't necessarily look at. When you think of other developers, they would most likely break this building down and rebuild it and make it residential. We are keeping it as a place of worship for churches so that they can build wealth. And that's one of the key things that we like to do with churches, educate them on how they can build income from their buildings, which is what we've got here. Being in Old Kent Road, it is a prime location for churches. You've got a lot of gentrification going on in the neighborhood. You've got a Bakerloo line coming to Old Kent Road, so accessibility is going to get a bit better. But one thing you definitely know is the value of this property can only get higher and higher and higher. I mean, it's only a matter of time.
Orchid Place, it's a very, very, very beautiful.
Okay, I go into my latest slide of presentation just to talk through. I was going to show some other videos of our other buildings, but I'm mindful of time. Doctor, do you think I should still do that or just go into my presentation?
Yeah,
I'll just go to-
you can show maybe one more. I believe they are showing like the properties you've converted to churches. That's what this is about, right?
That's correct.
So
That's
if you can
correct.
show maybe one more property, then you get into your slide. That's fine.
Okay, I would put that through, but I'll just go to the slide because I just want people to kind of engage more in understanding the UK laws and planning laws and all that. So I'll put that through as I round up my presentation. My first key thing I'll be talking to most of the pastors today is about strategic planning and real estate investment. Is that how do you understand planning? Because it's a major problem for churches. When we started, it's always about the planning used. Initial plan in the UK used to be called the D1. The D1 use has changed, is now called the F1. With regards to every building in the UK, a church is required to have a class use, which is called the F1 use, to be able to meet as a church. Not like the way we have in Nigeria, where anyone can buy a building and just go into a place. In the UK, it's different. You have to see that building has that class use, which is F1. Sometimes what we have to do is what we call subject to planning, where we've been able to identify to see that we can turn warehouses into churches. We've been able to turn police station into churches, bingo building into churches, nightclub into churches. But there is a class use that we have to always go for when we're doing this, which is called the F1 use. But a lot of time, the different ways to go in for planning, especially as a church that will be meeting the community need that is needed in that community. So the different ways to go around the planning laws of having to see that as a church, how do I start my way of going through the planning regulations? And these are part of things that would always help churches to educate, to tell them how this can be done. And this also goes into even different buildings, like for example, pubs building. We've turned pubs into place of worship. How do you go around that strategic change of use and knowing that, okay, before we buy or lease a building, what are the things we need to look out for to ensure that we don't fall a victim of either leasing a building or buying a building that would not be fit for purpose. So I can break down more. I can break this down on more information on how the strategic planning work across the UK, and also the church classification, which is what I mentioned about the use being the F1. Some building can be converted, like we've done to some offices, where we've been able to identify old offices and turn them into place of worship. There's always an argument around this, because the problem we have with the use class in the UK, originally every area in the UK would have a church, but the planning laws have changed, where most of these laws that allow for churches are now against having churches, because they see churches as creating a lot of noise pollution, a lot of challenges within the community when people come from outside that neighborhood, and all the challenges that come with that. But there are ways that you can always present your argument to the planners when you're making the case for a change of use. But these are part of what you have to put into your plan when you're looking at expanding or starting your church in the UK. Is this the right use class? A lot of churches fall victim and the fourth law of the law of the land, whereby after a while of starting a church, it becomes a situation where the council can enforce and they won't be able to use that space. And most times they spend a lot of money with having to have refurbished the space. So it's always important to identify the class use, to knowing that I'm getting a building that would not be a problem for us to congregate as a church. Part of this class use also to put into consideration is some of these use would not even allow you to have night vigils. So you have to make sure in your planning, in making your planning, these are things you have to come to the plate to discuss with your planners, to see that we need to see every Sunday from 9 to 12, 9 to 4, we're going to be using this as a place of worship. In the evening of weekdays, we'd have this, and on Fridays, we might be having vigil. But these are part of the things you have to consider when you're looking at expanding in the UK with getting a use for your church. I speak about the funding options. There are various ways of exploring funding for churches. Over the last decade of us doing this, we've seen different alternative ways, different pots. A lot of churches don't leverage on this opportunity of funding, because when they set up as charity, and there's a limit of what you can do as a charity. The advantages of you setting up as a charity, there also the advantage that you can set up one as a CIC and also as a company by guarantee. So these are the things you have to consider when you're setting up your charity, so that the funding opportunity, you can exploit those funding. There are millions of funding that is available for churches that might be in the UK. I can tell you a lot of this pot of funding that you can leverage on as a church. A lot of churches don't exploit this funding for reason best known, but I always say it is a funding that is given by the government. Is something you can leverage on to help your church. Even this funding also, for example, the funding and grants that many churches are not aware that they qualify for in order to buy their building. And this is a part of the innovative solution that we as a firm have been able to create, that churches can exploit the options of, okay, how best can we do this in order to buy a building? And I'll be talking more about that in my presentation as well. Then I mentioned about charity. When you're setting up your church, it's important to speak to people that are already in the industry that can advise you. Should I set up as a charity? Should I set up as a CIC? Should I set up as a company by guarantee? I always advise most churches, you can have the two, either as a charity either as a CIC or coming by guarantee. With charities, you're able to claim back your gift aid, but you can also still have a company by guarantee that allows you to invest in buying properties, which is part of why we're having this seminar today to educate people about having to invest as a church. How do I start owning a residential property? How do I start with a little property that we can add to our portfolio to utilize or leverage on when we intend to go to the bank for lending? And also the charity laws in the UK. The many lawyers that are very vast and accountants that are vast in this industry when it comes to charity laws. I've seen a lot of pastors and churches where they've gone to the wrong people for advice and it's come back negative on them. It's always important to get the best in the industry when you're moving or relocating your church to the UK. Seek that knowledge, as we know, as the Bible said, in the multitude of wisdom, in the multitude of counsel, there's safety. So as a church, you understand what is the best way. For accounting purpose, what is the best way? For me filing my return as a church, what is the best way? So these organizations are there, they're able to guide you on the right way of what you need to do as a church. The UK, it's for churches, it's highly regulated because you're considered as a charity. So don't make that issue of setting up and you now start to look back on why didn't I do this initially? Is always the challenge we've seen with many churches, even from a place of filing their annual return. Some churches, you'll be so shocked to see that for over 2-3 years, they've not filed their return as a charity. And there's always a massive penalty. And also for banks, when they're looking at lending to that church, the bank will look at that as, we can't lend this charity. So those are things you have to put into place when you're looking at the laws in the UK. What can I do? What are the things that I cannot do as a charity? How do I put myself into a position where I would not have to go through the route of doing this? So these are ways where you present yourself stronger when you're looking at yourself as a church in the UK. I talk about the access to funding, which is very important. With regards to access to funding, we've been able to build a massive rapport and partnership with a lot of UK banks, especially banks that understand the churches. Initially, when we started, there were challenges when it comes to funding. A lot of churches struggle to get finance. And we've been able to build this relationship with a lot of charity, with a lot of banks that are focused on charity, that understand what churches are trying to do. I give you a good example. Most banks in the initial start for us didn't understand the element of tithe and offering. How do churches have this sort of money where they can buy assets? What happens if this member goes away from the church? And these are the problems that a lot of time churches don't understand, that you need to put a robust plan in place so that when you're looking for funding, what are the things the bank would always look out for? What are the things that the bank, you wouldn't have to defend yourself from a place of tithe and offering? The different ways where you can structure your charity and your church in a place where when the funders, the banks are looking at you, they're not just relying on your tithe and offering. They're relying on all that things you put in place. For example, businesses that you've set up. Some churches have been able to educate them on going into franchise, going into setting up businesses, nursery, even for example, the likes of Tasty and other restaurants you see around, the franchise that churches can set up to help them when it comes to access to funding, that the bank can look at them from a place of strength as opposed to a place of it's just the tithe and offering. But these are part of things that we do as an organization where we educate, help the churches to understand the right bank. It's not a bank that would lend to churches. The specialist bank that focus on lending to churches. The churches, the banks that are kingdom-minded, that we have relationship with, that it's just a matter of decision, looking at the case study of that church. I would always say this, you need to make sure with access to funding, your business plan on how do you want to utilize that space? not just on a Sunday alone of a morning service? What do you do on Mondays to Friday to see that you can get income from this building? And I give a good example of what we've done as a business where God has helped us is when we set up with church building, we have co-working spaces in the building from Monday to Friday. We have income from the co-working spaces. On Saturday, the different activities, but on Sunday, the spaces are still being used as churches. So helping to see that in order to, for affordability and also access to funding, we can access good funding from the bank. There's something that is called in finance loan to value, where the bank will look at you and say, okay, you can, rather than lending you 50%, based on this income you're generating, would lend you 70%. So how do you as a church see from a place of the access to funding, you're able to leverage? There's something we call in real estate, it's leverage. The power for you to be able to leverage is very key as a church. So leveraging from the place of, if you're starting one branch today, if your branch is in London, how do we leverage that in less than 5 years? We can have 10 churches. And this is possible from how you've structured your church from the start of your funding. So if you're buying a building, you know our target is in the next 5 years or 3 years, we want to strategically leverage on the bank funding to be able to scale, to see that we can grow with this access to funding. There's a lot in the place of funding, and I always advise churches to see that leverage with the bank. It's always important to see how much you can leverage on. We as a business have been able to leverage on that, and that has helped us within the short time period to grow as a business. So leverage on bank finance for a church is important because you have the opportunity to be able to do that. So that's one aspect of access to funding. The other funding that are not just bank, that you can also access. The pool of funds that a lot of churches are not aware that they qualify for, where other faith organizations are leveraging on, other charities that are not even faith-led organization are leveraging on. So the couple of funding pools that you can take advantage of as a church. We've seen many organizations, even many churches. For example, we've just recently set up a church fund. We've seen the likes of Assemblies of God that have created the fund that has helped now to become a bank. The Kingdom Bank came from the back of the Assemblies of God fund. So if you're an established church in the UK and you have your assets, you'll find you can start to think about creating a fund that can help your church grow quicker. And that can be a fund that is done by the members of the church pulling funds together, getting a return on investment to help the church scale, to help the church grow. But members are also leveraging on the good return on the fund because it is real estate focused. But this is information that, because of time, I won't be able to go into a lot of this information of how do you start that, but we can always help putting the church to this necessary information on what you can do. The other part for churches that are starting up in the UK is always something I say about the role of the church in the community. I always lay emphasis on this because we've seen how churches that are meant to make a lot of impact leverage on access to funding and grant from the government because of their role in the community, not doing a lot of this. As a business, we have a social impact fund. I didn't know this until we went into setting up a fund to understand that it is part of the strategy. As a church, you're making a major impact in the community. Some would ask me, okay, how do we differentiate the spiritual impact? Your church in that community, some churches currently have food bank. That is a massive social impact you are leveraging on or you're doing in that community. What about the things you do for the homeless? If you're not putting this as a social impact where you're writing about your food bank, your shelter, the shelter bank, the support you're giving to people within your church, these are things you have to make sure you're laying emphasis on, talking about them, putting on your website, showcasing what you're doing, how you're supporting your local community as a church, so that when even banks are looking at you, because these are part of the things that the bank would always look at from a place of your role in the community. What do you do in the community? the food bank, the homeless, people in your community, different initiative, elderly clubs in the community, youth centers in the community, just even monthly stuff you can do to help that community. So when the banks are looking at you, they look at you from a place of impact, and they can come to say, yes, we're going to borrow you more money because we can see the impact, the role of what you're doing, not just from a spiritual perspective, but we also know this as believers, as pastor. This is also kingdom initiative. This is also what the kingdom wants us to do in our community. So there are loads of stuff you can do. The different ideas, even as we have created a social impact fund, that we can help you as a church to tell you, start this in this community. The community has a need of this. Your community has a need of that. See that community need, you can help. Another simple way that some churches don't really help themselves in the communities, you need to make sure you partner with your local council, meeting the leaders of your council. In every borough we are in the UK, we have the councils come to us because they see what we do. So as a church, how do you lay emphasis on making sure, as we set up in every community, we have a meeting with the leader of the council? What are the needs? We've come here as a church to help the council meet the society need, so they can see the impact you're making as a church in that community. Also leveraging on the buy-to-let product. There's a lot of buy-to-let product from the bank. And I always say this to churches. The easiest way for a church to grow, because we know buying a church building can be very worrisome, because one church building you have is over 40 to 50 churches trying to buy the same building. So if you're going to help in terms of access to funding, it's also always important to leverage on this buy-to-let product. So some of the buy-to-let products are even residential. If you're a new church, you have £100,000 in your account, you might not be able to buy a building, a church building. You can easily buy a commercial buy-to-let product. You can get a buy-to-let product from the bank where you have a residential property. Once the bank look at your account, they look at you from a place of strength. You have an asset. That asset can be leveraged on in the future. We've helped a lot of churches to do this, where from just buying one residential, they're able to buy two free at the back of what we call equity on that particular property. So if you buy a property now, say an upland property as a church, there's 20 to 30% equity. At the back of that, in 6 months, you can raise money from that property, go buy another residential property. Within 1 to 2 years, you have 2-3 property. Look at the asset you have as a church. Those buy-to-let property can become £1 million on your book. So when you're going to buy your church asset, the bank will look at you from a place of strength. And also remember, you have income that is coming from those assets. And there's also capital appreciation on those buy-to-let products. So I always advise churches, these are ways where you can help yourself on the long-term plan of having to build this buy-to-let product. Many banks, we have many banks on or many banks that we have a relationship with that would allow you access this buy-to-let product. So with that, it's easy for you to build and leverage on doing that. So those are the buy-to-let product, and the buy-to-let product also can help you, not even just residential, off license. Also, like the mixed-use assets. For example, we have across the UK, different African restaurants, different nursery. You can buy a small nursery that is owned by the church, and you have an income from that. You can buy a small property that you can refurbish and is bringing you income, turning that into co-working spaces like we have, service accommodation, different kind of businesses you can that you might not have the right amount of money to buy your church building. But from that asset, that can help you leverage when you're ready to then buy your church asset. So there's a lot of buy-to-let product that a church can leverage on. Then lastly, it's always about the financial concerns and misconception of, I don't have money. It's always the problem of when churches speak, oh, it's a lot of money to do this. Some of these things don't require a lot of money. It's a matter of knowledge. And I always share this when I speak to pastors. It's in the place of wisdom. as we're sharing this, Dr. Stephen has allowed this sort of platform to engage, to sharing how people like us have done this, where we say things like no money down. We say different stuff of option where you can leverage on literally having to buy a building for £1 without having to put in enough capital, without having to put down substantial amount of capital. So there are different ways of knowing how to leverage on this misconception of I need big capital. I can tell you that you don't need big capital to start. You can start with the little and start to grow that from the little that you have as a church. A good case study is this building. We bought this building for less than £1. It's called Option, which many churches don't know you can do this. There are many buildings across the UK laid like church building. Church of Scotland, for example, I currently have over 500 or 700 assets that they're trying to get rid of. Scotland, we have churches we represent in Scotland, but looking at those places, it might be far. But there are other areas where you can buy buildings for less than nothing. When we say £1 is you put an option down, you can refurbish, then lease out the building, leverage on the refinance of the asset, and this asset is currently valued about 5 million. But there's a lot that entails what goes into this. But it's not that myth of saying, I need a lot of money. It's not done in real estate. The clever ways where you can leverage on how do I grow this? What can I do with this? I give a good example of Jehovah's Witness. Jehovah's Witness are one of the biggest landlords in the UK. I was involved in the deal when they were moving from North London. When they sold, they had a massive portfolio of about £400 million. The entire road in Mill Hill was owned by Jehovah's Witness. They started buying like 35 years ago, every building on the road, where they eventually owned everything on that road. It took them a while, which is part of the wisdom that the kingdom we need to put into place as a church. You come into a borough, you buy one, you keep buying, you keep taking ownership. As we know what the scripture says about ownership, but I don't want to preach. It's meant for me to give insight on what we've been doing and seeing how the children of the world are doing this in a better way. So leveraging on this is key. I've seen how Jehovah's Witness have moved to Colchester, Chelmsford today, and they have a mass over 200-acre site which they've gotten planning for their church. It's a massive site they've developed where after selling a lot of their portfolio in London, they move outside London. So these are ways where you can look at long time, things where the likes of Pastor Adeboye, Bishop Oyedepo, many churches have leveraged on in Nigeria. It's doable here. It's just strategic planning and looking at the long-term play of how this can be done. Laws will change eventually. So when laws are changing, you are then taking advantage of the building you bought for cheaper to see that you can do a lot with this building. Church of England, I've given you enough example. Church of England are one of the biggest landlords in the UK, but they've leveraged on the understanding of this kingdom mentality of ownership. So they've been able to build on having so much assets. We still do a lot of transactions with them. We're speaking to them even from our fund. They have enough millions for the next 20, they have billions that is owned by the Church of England, just from the mere fact of understanding real estate. They've cleverly, not just churches, they have warehouse, they have different units, they have different real estate property. And these are the things where churches must start to build the plan for future generation so that the legacy of your church is not just going away. So in the future, you can see that the churches will no longer have to, like Church of England, don't rely on offering and tithe because they've been able to build their portfolio of assets over the years to sustain the church. Same with Assemblies of God. I mentioned to you, we lent our fund from the Assemblies of God. We're able to see that Assemblies of God started the First Kingdom Fund, which is now the Kingdom Bank. So there are many ways of understanding how this can be done and what you can do from a place of real estate investment in the UK. I'm mindful of time, so I would pass this on to Dr. Stephen. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir, for this very wonderful expository on investment in real estate for pastors. Okay, before Dr. Stephen comes on board, I don't know if anybody in the audience have some questions you want to ask. You have questions? We can go to the Q&A.
We have a lot of questions. I
Yes,
think
sir. Okay.
I would love if we can take the questions together once I'm done with my
Okay.
presentation, because questions usually will take time. But if
Okay.
we can put the question in the Q&A box, I think that would make a lot of sense. So all our questions, let's put in the Q&A box. I think that's the best way to go about it. So please, if you have questions, kindly put it in the Q&A box. Right. Sorry. So let's put the question in the Q&A box. Okay. Are we ready for me, or I should take some time? Are we ready for my session now?
Yes, sir. I think you can go on, sir.
Okay, let me start that by thanking Mr. Somi. Can we all clap for our last speaker? Please, let's celebrate him. Amazing, presentation there. Please, let's clap for him. Okay. I want to start by saying that for me, I think it's very, very important that I can see Felix Buadi. Please put your question in the question section, the Q&A section. I can see Mr. Stephen Olugbenro. Just take your question to the Q&A box so that it's easier, because as people type, your question will just disappear and we will not be able to see it. But let me start by saying that I believe strongly that, ministry and commerce are very, very linked. In fact, I believe strongly that ministry and government are very, very linked. And if you study the world history, you will see that every government eventually carried along her own religion, her own faith. But the genesis of all of that is real estate, right? The genesis of all of that is real estate. I'll give an example. If you and I were to have been born in Afghanistan, I had an Uber driver take me recently, and he says from Afghanistan, and I said, oh, what happened? How come that despite all the US war in Afghanistan, at the end of the day, Taliban still took over? Okay, now if you and I were born in Afghanistan, I'm not sure if you agree with me that we would have been a Muslim. And some of us, the chances of being in Taliban will have been very high, because Taliban was actually a government, even though later they were classified as terrorist group, but they had their own government, they had their own faith, they had their own belief system as to how they wanted to run Afghanistan. Okay, so whoever owns the land controls the fate on the land. Yes, over time things shift, things change, but that's ultimately what happened. When you look at England, that was the same thing, right? England was largely Catholic. Over time, one issue or the other, then there was the beginning of what we call the Church of England. But when you look at the assets, the large portion of the lands in England, I would argue that after the royal family, the next set of people, and I think Mr. Somi can confirm this, the next set of institutions that own assets, particularly landed property in England, it will be the Church of England, right? And so I get really surprised when I see people run ministries and do not understand how real estate is tied to that. You know, I see ministries focus just on, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with prioritizing the gospel, but there has to be a strategic long-term plan to the ministry. And if the faith movement will be long-term, then the real estate has to be part of it, investing in assets, because, you know, it's always a long-term planning. I give you an example. If Catholic, for example, had not had a long-term plan of investment, I don't know if you agree with me that most of the Catholic churches will have been sold today. If you agree with me, just type I agree. If you don't agree, of course, feel free to say I don't agree. Let me ask again. I don't know if you agree, because Catholic is over at least 1,000 years old, that if Catholic had not invested in real estate assets all these years, okay, by now you will have been hearing, oh, a Catholic church was sold to a nightclub. A Catholic church was sold to this, to that, right? But because the strategy of every Catholic church, even while expanding to Africa, the strategy remained the same. And I'm going to start with land banking. The first strategy was land banking. As Catholic moved to Africa, you know, people still don't know that Roman Catholic has the largest land concentration in Nigeria. Okay? You know, somebody said they start with farm. You know, they start with farm, but yeah, that's how you start land banking. You know, land banking starts with you buying farmlands. You know, it starts with you buying farmlands, and those farmlands, over time, the environment, the location develop, and boom, the place that used to be a farmland becomes a choice location. So, but when Catholic moves to any place, the first strategy is acquisition of properties, land, whether in the village, it doesn't matter how remote it is, you know, and Winners Chapel has picked that culture as well. But that is when you are building ministry for the long term. And my fear is that the Pentecostal movement, by the way, how many of you are Pentecostals here? If you're Pentecostal, let me see, just type I'm Pentecostal. If you are Anglican, just type Anglican. It's on RCCG, yeah, that's Pentecostal. So if you're Pentecostal, just type Pentecostal. If you're Anglican, type Anglican. If you are Methodist, type Methodist. If you're Catholic, type Catholic. I know by default, majority of those here will be Pentecostal, and I think that's what I'm seeing from those who have typed. All I'm seeing here is Pentecostal, 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 right? And if the Pentecostal movement will be sustained transgenerational, okay, I have to be honest with you, we have to get right real estate investment. We must get that right. If we don't get real estate evangelicals, good. I mean, Pentecostal came from evangelicals, right? So if you don't get real estate right, if you don't get it right, then God forbid that a time will come, we'll literally be telling people that Pentecostals used to be big in Africa, and people will be saying, what are you talking about? What is Pentecostal? Right? Because like I said earlier, you know, the owner of the land determines the religion that is practiced on the land. The owner of the land ultimately determines the religion that is practiced on the land. That's why if you were to have been born, for example, in the northern part of Nigeria, you most likely will have been a Muslim. Okay? So it's important to understand that preaching the gospel, somebody say, how? How? Because you will have been born to a Muslim family if you're an Hausa man, the higher chances that you will have been a Muslim. The chances are much higher because there are more Muslims in the north than Christians, because there are a good number of Christians there. So where you are born, whichever religion dominates that land, naturally becomes the religion that is passed on to you. Yes, over time, people change and all of that, but the long-term play has to be that you as a ministry begin to think, how do we build asset into the long term? I hope this is helpful. If it's helpful, please can you type, this is helpful. So let me start my presentation proper. If you can see my slide, let me see. If you can see my slide, please type, I can see your slide. So I'm going to start with my profile and then we get into today's class.
Dr. Stephen Akinteo is Africa's most influential investment coach. He is a member of the Forbes Business Council and a recipient of several prestigious awards, including the Forbes Best of Africa, Leading Investment Coach and Real Estate Mogul by Forbes Best of Africa Award. He is the chairman of GText Holdings and the founder of Stephen Akinteo Foundation. GText Holdings is the mother company of 11 subsidiaries with a highly innovative and young workforce. These subsidiaries include GText Homes, GText Land, Stephen Akinteo Foundation, GVest, GText Farms, GText and Associates, GText Academy, GText Soft, GText Hub. GText Holdings has several branches in Nigeria, which include Lagos State, Ibadan, Abeokuta, Asaba, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. Other offices are in Dubai, the UK, and the US, and the company plans to extend operations to other African countries like Ghana, Rwanda, and Uganda. Dr. Akinteo Real Estate Firm has a plan to build 25,000 green and smart homes with golf courses, polo clubs, mall, hotel, hospitals, schools, and universities across Africa by the year 2035. And control another set of 25,000 properties outside of Africa, with a total real estate asset worth $40 billion by the year 2035. Dr. Stephen Akinteo is also the host of the Global Property Brokers Conference, the largest brokers conference in Africa. Now renamed the Global Wealth Festival, several renowned speakers like Grant Cardone, Ryan Serhant, Dr. John Maxwell, and others have been brought on the platform. Dr. Akinteo has hosted some of the world's most renowned speakers on his platforms like Robert Kiyosaki, Brian Tracy, Les Brown, Dan Locke, Toby and Tomi Arayomi, Toby Adegboyega, and several others. He is the host of the Investment Chat in a Rolls-Royce, which teaches people about different investment opportunities around the globe. Learning Luxury Show, a show that educates on the benefits of owning luxury and monetizing it, and Big Talk Show, aimed at enlightening youths and the general public on election-related issues in order to build the new Nigeria. He is also the host of the Billionaire Habits podcast, Burj Khalifa series in Dubai. You can watch them on the Billionaire Habits podcast. Dr. Stephen is also the author of 42 books. His latest are The Billionaire Habits for Pastors, Billionaire Habits for Entrepreneurs, and Becoming a Billionaire Land Banker. All his books can be found in Dr. Stephen's books. To book him for speaking engagements, email eg@stephenakinteo.com and contact the number on your screen for more inquiries.
Okay. So welcome, and today's presentation is real estate investment for churches. And the first strategy I want to share is land banking. So what is land banking? Land banking is real estate investment strategies where investors purchase undeveloped land or underdeveloped land with the intention of holding it for an extended period, anticipating its appreciation in value due to factors like urban development, infrastructure, or zoning change. And this is really where you start from, particularly for ministries that are, growing up. Even big ministries, funny enough, have this strategy as the core. Ministries like Winners Chapel, Redeem, despite how big they are, Catholic, they buy villages, right? So I get amazed when growing ministries are not thinking that long term. I really get amazed. But when you're buying, what are the factors you are looking at? Transportation facilities, is it close to a third road or major road? Educational facilities. That's why if you notice, many of the Pentecostal churches like Winners and Redeemed that bought larger land banking land, when that Geo bought Redeemed Camp, I'll soon share that story with you. It was literally forest, farmlands, right? Many of them had to put universities there. The advantage is that the university in itself helped to raise the value of that neighborhood. So it's either you put universities there, now you see all the other, even MFM, everybody had to put university where they did land banking. So it's either you put the university there or you leverage on the fact that there's an existing university there. Created environments, you can put in, hotels, resorts, and all of that. Natural resources on the land. These are key factors that you look at when doing land banking. Climate, labor force, leadership, and local laws and regulations, right? So these are all critical things to look out for. So what are the various phases of land banking? We have what we call undeveloped land, pre-developed land, and developed land. So under developed land or undeveloped land, this is when it's still a farmland. If you look at the image at the top, you see that it's mostly farmland. Then pre-developed land is when, there's construction has started. Then developed land, you can see a lot of skyscraper at the top of that graph. Now, where is the largest profit margin? Can anybody tell me? Where did you see the largest profit margin? Anyone? Based on what I'm showing you, where can we see the largest, in the graph? Where's the largest, growth coming from? Okay. Somebody say pre-developed. Fantastic. So by the time the land is pre-developed, in the pre-developed phase, has the largest, potential more than anything else. But I have a question. Okay. When is the best time to buy land based on this that I've shown you? When do you think is the best time to buy land based on this graph? Okay, when is the best time to buy? And I know it's now. Is it the undeveloped or underdeveloped? Is it pre-developed? Is it developed? So Ty Solomon says pre-developed. Charles says underdeveloped. Okay, so those of you who say underdeveloped, you're right. However, you are only half right, because if you can see my cursor, right? If you buy the undeveloped at this phase, do you see now? How many of you know that between here and here can be 50 years? Between this beginning of undeveloped to where pre-developed start can be 50 years, can be 100 years. So I always say buy undeveloped, but buy the latter phase of the undeveloped. How do you know the latter phase of the undeveloped? When there is an announcement of major projects in that area. Oh, a refinery is coming there. Oh, the express road is being expanded. Oh, Amazon decided to build their major plant there. Oh, there's this industrial project coming there, right? Once those things are being announced, even before it's being done, that is the right time to immediately go and secure your property. Are we learning here? Okay, if you are learning, just type I'm learning. Okay, so that's the best time to rush and say, hey, I need to tie this down now. Okay, so when we look at application to churches, here you have to look at application of land banking to churches, future expansion, building new facilities. These are things you are looking at to influence whether you're going to do this or not. Also, of course, Preservation of land for future is what you want to look out for. So cultural, spiritual significance, environmental stewardship, a lot of these things need to be looked at. Investment for financial stability, asset appreciation, funding ministry projects. It's time for ministers to know how that you have to be thinking investment to finance long term. I agree that, there is the place of the anointing. Okay, there is the place of the anointing. There is the place of the supernatural. But I've argued many times that from my Bible, the manna was only available during the wilderness phase. Okay, true or false? If you agree, type I agree. The manna was only available during the wilderness phase. Okay. The manna ceased immediately they got to Canaan. True or false? I have seen situations where ministers and ministries do not understand that there is a phase where God is willing to just surprise you with miracles left and right. However, there is a phase where God expects you to begin to use your brain. Like my bishop will say, God gave us brain so he can rest. There's a phase where God expects proper financial planning. I'll give you an example. When God was sending Adam and Eve out of the garden, he decided to literally clothe them himself. True or false? Okay, come on, talk to me. God himself decided to clothe them himself, isn't it? The question is, after they left the garden, did God continue to clothe them? Were the seed of Adam and Eve not the ones who decided to turn a tree to a chair? Were the seed of Adam and Eve not the ones who decided to turn, okay, wood to house? Okay, and evolve so much technology out of life. So when we have this mindset that miracle is meant to be forever, and that we should suspend our brain and just keep waiting for miracles and do nothing, that is not biblical, right? There's nothing in the Bible that shows that. Everywhere in the Bible, you will see where God made provision at the beginning to help his children. And at some point, God expected them to help themselves and begin to think ideas and structure. So ministries must plan financially. Ministries must think financial issues long term. Ministries must sit with professionals and plan the future of the ministry. The fact that Pa Akindayomi, who started Redeem, okay, started a small church where the income of the church, what was it really? It didn't make sense for Daddy Gio to take over and keep Redeem at a small phase. And Redeem is still trusting God for money all the time. I expect whoever takes over from Daddy Gio to even take the financial state of Redeem to a whole new level, because he didn't leave the financial structure the way Pa Akindayomi gave it to him. Right? It was in the days of Daddy Gio that professionals, elite started attending Redeem. People didn't even know this story. The majority of Daddy Gio was one of the few elites that were in Redeem when he started. It was more of the lower class church, right? During his time, he started having doctors, professors, professionals join the ministry. So very, very important as a ministry, we have to think finance big time. And when we start doing this, we realize that we encourage our members to also start doing the same. Proper financial planning, thinking long term. So community engagement, affordable housing initiatives, community centers, public spaces. These are the opportunities that land banking affords ministries. Why was it easy for Catholic to have hospitals that they built? Okay, it was because they bought lands at when it was way cheaper. Years later, it was easy to begin to put, affordable hospitals there. It was easy for them to be able to build universities there. Here in the US, I'm not you aware that most universities in the US are owned by churches, are owned by ministries. They may not carry the name of the ministries, but churches taught long term and started building universities, started building schools. And years later, when those churches were no longer like the major denomination that younger people wanted to attend, these institutions continue to sustain the ministry. People who attended the school eventually became members. People who attended, and that went on and on and on. Now, prevent unwarranted development, land control use, urban influence planning. The fact that you've gotten the land when it was still undeveloped, right? You grow with the land. So a time will come, the land the church owns is in the city center. And the church can insist and say, we will not sell alcohol here. Right? We do not allow alcohol to be sold here. I learned a lot doing business in Dubai. Okay, how the Islamic community, and I will say this, with due respect, the Islamic community has gone far, right, in this area than we that were Christians. They've gone really far. Okay, I will tell you that. Because at the beginning of, for example, please come in. At the beginning of, for example, UAE, let me start with Dubai. Because I practically live in Dubai for 3 years and we still have a big business in Dubai till today. At the beginning of UAE, they were not even allowing you to own the land forever. Okay? Forever. They were not allowing you to own the land. Right? So it was a lease for a few years. Of course, at some point, they started allowing you to own the land forever, but the rules are very strict. The rules are where they want this to go is where it goes. And that's the power of land ownership. Owning the land gives you the authority to keep the culture, keep the right values that your ministry stands for. So let's look at, and you can see that with Redeem Camp, right? The laws in Redeem Camp is as put down by Redeem Church. Even if you are a Muslim and you live in Redeem Camp, or you believe in Ifa and you live in Redeem Camp, you must obey the law there. That you cannot put a beer parlor there or alcohol center there. You have to obey that law. Now, look at how Redeem Camp started. It was strategically acquired. How many of you are aware that the land was acquired, the initial plots of land was acquired for 6,000 naira? If you are aware, type I'm aware. If you're not aware, type I'm not aware. 6,000 naira. In fact, according to Daddy Gio's testimony, it was literally almost a crisis. In fact, he said the church board would have removed him if it was in the constitution of Redeem. Okay, because the church board saw a land which was closer to Ebute Metta, where the headquarters was. But the land was for 56 million or so per plot. And he said to the church board, we don't have this money. So they said, why not? Let's go and take a loan. And he wasn't comfortable with the loan matter. And, they were really pissed off. And then one of the members was going to Ibadan. On his way, he saw this land and they were saying they wanted to sell it. So he called that Jew and said, there's a land he saw, on his way to Ibadan. They want to sell for 6,000 naira. And that Jew said, he didn't even see the lie, just say, tell them we're buying it. Just based on the fact that the 6,000 naira fits into the budget. Are we learning? Okay, today, I see young ministries, being excessive about, the land must be in Lekki, the land must be in Ikeja. Instead of saying, you know what, we might not be able to afford Ikeja now, but our church started in Ikeja. So what do? Can we buy somewhere in Mowe or Fada for now? And keep it for a few years? We don't know what will happen. can we buy, something for now, right? I'm buying Ibejuleki and just keep it. Who knows what happened in the future? I remember a ministry, I've not mentioned their name, the founder recently passed on. And I got this 500, even before the founder passed on, over 500 acres of land with C of O, everything. And they were planning to do a university there, and they wanted to sell it. Huge money. When the founder passed on, I said to myself, what if this man didn't have foresight? Because, he died in his late 60s. What if he didn't have foresight to have really helped this ministry to be on a solid financial structure? How will it have been how will it be easy to move on? Okay? So when we look at how strategic Redeem has become now, okay, because of Redeem, the entire Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is fully developed, and now a major strategic spot, right? Community impact, in terms of what Redeem is able to do with the university in Redeem Camp. We can go on and on to talk about other aspects of what the land has been able to become. Another one is Winners Chapel, Canaan land. I happen to live in that axis for a couple of years, and I know that initially the lands there were going for 50,000 naira until so your presence alone as a ministry has a chance of raising the value of that particular neighborhood. And that's what happened. When Canaan land moved to Ota, land went up, right? Many church members moved to that neighborhood, and it really helped the ministry. In fact, you won't believe this story. I recently toured, if you follow me on Instagram, you will see my touring of the new church auditorium called the Ark by Bishop Oyedepo. And I was asking Pastor Steve Oga when we did the tour, because the location now, can you believe that they still need land in that same place? How many of you will believe this? Because there's another annex that was bought for about 12,000 acres. But the location, Bishop was convinced to build the Ark. By the time they started building the Ark, they realized they would need more land towards that area, because the extra land they bought was way at the back. And they started talking to the neighbors around that area to sell more. Do you know they were asking Winners Chapel to pay 50 million? It was ridiculous. And who made the place this was a place going for 50,000 naira, as at the time in the early 90s when Winners moved there. Are we learning here? Okay, if we're learning type, we're learning. Because it's also part of the mistake I made in some lands I bought, where I didn't buy enough. And later on, people were asking me to pay more for a place where it was the development I put there that made the value to go up, right? The development that my company, GTEX Holdings, put there that made the value to go up. And now every other neighbor is saying I must pay a lot more. So these are powerful case studies that land banking works for ministries, and that ministers need to, churches need to be thinking of land banking. And if you look at how Canaan land moved from just putting the largest church auditorium to having Covenant University, which you can see here, okay, and that totally even turned around the story. And you can see the same case, right? There's a Redeemer University in Redeem Camp as well. And that created a whole ripple effect, economic change, professors moved to that neighborhood, a lot of income and all of that. It's just, the ripple effect is so massive. Even for church members who started building schools, hotels, their own residential properties there, and made money from that. We are also right. So I don't want to go into UK. I think we've learned a lot about UK. so we can keep to time because we've learned a bit about UK, but the same model can be done anywhere in the world. It's just having a long-term strategic mindset. You know, I'm skipping some things because of time. I believe we will still have another opportunity to have, more conversations like this with time. Example receipts, Mary's Church, London, Community Hall, I can go on and on. But let me see, I'm just skipping a lot. So let's look at a few things to consider when doing land banking. Financial planning, budgeting is one major thing you have to look at. Fundraising. Loan option is also another thing you have to look at, right? I will say categorically, if you want to take the loan option, it must be that you have a business arm of the ministry. If you have a business arm of the ministry, then it will be easy for the business arm of the ministry to take the loan. How do I mean? The business arm of the ministry can be run as a proper business, for profit business, so that the proposal and the structure can be done in a way that it is structured to be able to pay back the loan, or structured in a way it can service the loan. Okay, so do not go and use your church to take loan that it now becomes, many ministries have scattered over taking loan because it's now difficult to be able to service the loan. And that's why you notice people like Daddy Gio and Bishop Oyedepo are a bit skeptical about the loan conversation, right? It's because they've seen cases where churches took loan and it was the reason for the downfall of the ministry. It was just not easy to sustain the loan. Some had to even literally throw away the property almost like for free. So there has to be a business coming in. There has to be a business arm of the ministry. Many of you may not know, there is business arm to Winners Chapel. There's business arm to Redeem Church of God. Some of you don't know this. And trust me, that the Jew or Bishop Oyedepo may not preach it on the altar, but go and do your research and you will realize that what I'm saying is exactly what I'm saying. There's business arm to all these ministries there's business arm to Catholic. Are you aware? Catholic has a fund. Okay, so please and please, it's time to begin to have the right perspective about how churches are run, ministries are run in the long term. And this conversation is, if you are serious about ministry in the long term, transgenerational ministries that, even when the founder is long gone, the ministry is there. So I will just be skipping. We have a lot of case studies because I know if I don't give enough case studies, a lot of pastors will have doubts about what I'm teaching. So how can churches strategically get funding, right? One is establish a funding plan with a clear timeline, and also analyze your risk tolerance, diversification of investment like bonds, equity fund, money market funds. Debt syndication is also something, I don't know whether it's in this particular slide. Okay, syndication is also something churches can consider. Remember, I said the business arm of the ministry. So real estate syndication involves pooling resources from multiple investors to invest in real estate projects that will be difficult to finance individually. It is a popular way for investors to participate in large-scale property investment without having to manage the property themselves. A lot of your church members will be willing to be part of the real estate syndication where they are putting in funds and then they will get returns over time. Ministries can set up syndications as well as the business arm. We have, there are different types of syndications. We call real estate investment trust. There's the mortgage, there's the hybrid, there's the public traded real estate investment trust, there's the These are under REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust. There is also what we call the debt equity syndication. Equity syndication means they co-own the property. Those who invested co-own it. So profit and loss is owned by the members. Then we have the debt syndication, which means they don't co-own it, right? They will only just be getting returns on investments based on whatever happens. Okay, that's called debt syndication. So in the case of debt syndication, you are the core owner, and you take the liability, and then you are paying them returns on investment. Okay. For example, this is one of our own projects here in the US. This is our latest project. It's 99 acre. And this is an example now. This is an example of what we are doing as well. So in this case, is a 99 acre land in Brookshire, Houston, Texas, and we're selling per acre $150,000. Now, ministries can choose to come and buy 5, 10 acres here, right? I can assure you in 5 years' time, it will more than double. But what we're also doing is that we have syndication for this as well, where people are able to invest, and we keep using their money to buy more of these kind of properties, and then we share the profit we make with them. Another case I love is the case of Dr. Bill Winston. I don't know if you know Dr. Bill Winston. If you know Dr. Bill Winston, just type I know him. If you don't know him, type I don't know him. He is also, and I particularly am excited about Dr. Bill Winston because it's we hardly find ministries that are founded by people of color, African Americans and things like that, who make this kind of move. We hardly find it, right? At some point, he believed God told him to buy a shopping mall in Forest Park Plaza, which was a Forest Park Plaza, as a church, to buy a mall. At some point, I think he bought a bank as well, right? And this is quite strange for a church to buy a mall, a shopping mall. Okay. And, in the early 2000s, Dr. Bill Winston and his church identified Forest Park Plaza, a struggling shopping mall near the church. Seeing the potential of the property, they decided to purchase the mall as part of their broader vision to impact the community economically and spiritually. Now, of course, like I said, this is the business arm of the church now buying this. Now, purpose and vision, Dr. Bill Winston vision was to transform the mall more than just a commercial place. The place includes using the mall for church-related activities such as worship center, educational program, community outreach initiative. Remaining space will be continued to operate as a commercial property, generating income through rental payment from businesses. Are you seeing that? Right? So you see how you plan ministry such that a time will come, even if no member pay tithe and offering, ministry keep running, and you are not frustrated, to put undue pressure on members. Now, so when you look at implementation, repurposing the mall, after acquiring the mall, Living Word Christian Center repurposed significant portion of the space to serve various community and church functions, including classroom, Christian bookstore, a Christian school, and facility that align with church mission. So you can't sell alcohol in the mall. They only took in businesses that comply with the values of the ministry. Economic, community, and economic impact. By retaining the commercial tenants in the mall, the church ensures steady income stream that supported both the upkeep of the property and the church broader financial goal. Additionally, the mall became a hub for community activities, offering several services like job training and business development program, which align with Dr. Bill Winston economic empowerment mission. And I think that's where Joseph Business School came from. I don't know if you have heard of Joseph Business School. If you have heard of it, type I've heard of it. If you haven't, type I haven't. I think Pastor Poju is, I think Pastor Poju's ministry is the partner of Joseph Business School in Nigeria. Okay, so outcome, financial stability, community engagement, right? These are the outcome of them buying the mall. In conclusion, Dr. Bill Whiston's investment in Forest Park Plaza is a prime example of how church can leverage real estate investment to achieve both financial stability, community impact by transforming a struggling mall into a what? A vibrant community worship space. Okay. So I'll play this video for you. This is one of the deals I'm doing here in the US. So just watch this video.
Here we are at Fulton, downtown. This is 30 minutes away from downtown. It's a 16 units property.
This my mentee is in a hurry to become Oga. So this is a good one,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Beautiful, I love it. We have the train station or metro line on top. It's on Main Street. There's an elementary school just opposite us here. Now, what I see as the juice here, guys, is the land. There's enough land space to be able to do something within 40 units, converting this from 16 to about 40 unit apartment. Of course, you have to go 2-3 story high. And 2 bedroom, 1 bedroom. And by the time, of course, we'll buy this, rental income while we put in for permits to take it higher and build something new. Get a bridging loan in 6 months. We have a 3 to 4 story high, 40 units or more apartments. You refinance it, right? And you take out all that you pay your bridging loan, pay the initial mortgage on it, and you make some profit. And then you now have 40 units minimum rental income coming in that will pay the new mortgage.
The higher mortgage.
The higher mortgage and more profits on the profit margin. And you can keep this for another 10, 20 years before you sell it. And by the time you're selling it is like 4 or 5 times the value. Yeah. So this is a good one, really good one. I'm buying this. The only thing is 1.4. I'll push for 1.2. Let's hope they agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I like this one.
All right. I like
Yeah.
Okay, so these are an example of real estate investment strategy. So here is a property I'm buying. It's 16 unit at the moment, $1.4 million. The goal is once we buy it, we're sure it's under a good management and we'll keep getting rental income. But immediately we put in for a 40 unit apartment on this same piece. So we'll eventually demolish this. So for the period it will take to get the permit, whether 6 months or 1 year, we still keep getting cash flow. And once the permit is out, we get a bridging loan for the new 40 units we are going to be building. And once we're done building in a 6 months period, we'll refinance it. And by the time we're refinancing it, what used to be 1.2 could now be $7 million. We pay off whatever mortgage we have when we bought it for 1.2. We'll pay off the bridging loan. We even make a profit on top. For life, if we want to keep the property, we keep getting rental income, right? So these are strategies that ministries can pick up, and you will have used things like this to grow the funds of the ministry to a point where you now have enough resources to buy the right type of location you desire for your ministry, okay? So here are books I've authored. One of them is Billionaire Habit for Pastors. I gave everyone free this one. I heard Jamie, if you are here, some people said they didn't get the book. So, Mr. Barry, what are we doing so
Yes,
that they
sir.
can get the book?
Okay, I will link up with Jamina to give them the link to download the e-copy right away.
Okay, so
Yes,
some
sir.
people said they didn't get the book, so I decided to give this for free, the e-copy for free to everyone.
Okay.
The rest, you want it, you have to pay, and you can go to store.stephenakintayo.com and you can go ahead and buy the book on that particular site, whether physical or soft copy. Soft copy are cheaper. And I promise you there are fantastic materials that will be of blessing. We do one-on-one coachings for entrepreneurs, for ministries. We're open to financial empowerment trainings for ministries, for pastors, for churches, so that we are a blessing to the body of Christ. And we're open to that. And hopefully you take advantage of that. We're ready for questions now. I think the two of us can be put up. Mr.
Okay.
Barry, take it away. Thank you
Yes,
for
thank you. So please let's give a very warm virtual clap to Dr. Stephen for this very wonderful teaching. Yeah, let me see the claps flying. Good. So we'll quickly go to the Q&A session now and take the questions. Okay, so I'm going there now to the Q&A session and take the questions that are available. Okay, answer your questions. The first question here is from Stephen Olugbemiro, who says, how about registering as a CIO for a new church starting in the UK? The question from Stephen Olugbemiro says, how about registering as a CIO for a new church starting in the UK? Okay, I think I will give this question to the first speaker. Or the Dr. Stephen would like to answer this? Yeah, okay. Please go on, sir.
Okay. The answer to that is it depends on how you want to structure your charity, especially knowing what sort of church you're trying to build. The CIO stuff works as well, but it's always easier and better to set up as a coming back guarantee so that you're not limited to the things that you can do, especially as a church, and also then register as a charity as well. So those are the two ways I always advise people to go with registration: charity and a coming back guarantee that allows you to do other things as a limited company.
All right, thank you very much for answering that question. The next question still goes to you, sir. It's from Felix Boadi, who says, how do I go about registration of my ministry in UK?
I can send you information. I can send you recommended people that can help you with doing that. So just reach out to us. My team will send information on someone that can help you with that. There are a couple of organizations that are great or good accountants that can do that for you.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Thank you. The third question is from Joseph Oyelami. The question is unclear. So, Mr. Joseph, can you please retype clearly so we get what you mean? Thank you. Then we have from Matthew Yusuf. Number one, it says, please, how can we access funds for our business in Nigeria as that of UK, as captured in Mr. Asani Akintoye's presentation? So, Dr. Stephen, sir, we want to take this one, sir.
No, it's still for Mr. Somi Adegoke.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay. So, okay, sir. So please go ahead.
What he has asked for is very simple. Dr. Stephen has a foundation, so maybe he can write to the foundation to help him on his financial need. Or the easiest way is understanding what you're trying to do from a funding perspective. I always tell people that funding is, you have to have a plan. What do you need funding for? If you have a plan of what you need funding for, there are different ways of assessing funding, but you just have to have a plan of what you intend to see that your funding you're trying to get. What do you want to achieve with that funding? So that would be my answer with that. because most funding we're speaking about is for funding for churches. So are you a church? And just the same way that Doctor has said it, there are many books you can read to understand this whole thing of raising fund. Fund is easy if you have a good plan. There are ways of having to see that you can exploit different opportunities of speaking to even potential investors on what you're trying to do with raising that fund.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Somi Akintoye.
And I will say this, that you need to work with professionals. And I think some of the times the challenge ministries struggle with is we expect the business world to work like ministry. Oh, everything is free. As soon as you really want a professional job to be done, get consultants, pay them, even though you're a ministry, right? And pay them to say, we need this to be set up for us. When ministries come up with this mindset, the ministry will move further and be able to have proper structuring. I mean, a lot of ministries have run into trouble because everything was just, let's do for who God we touch to do it for free, for free, for free. And it's the same mindset they've put into their members as well, who are not taking responsibility for financial destinies and are just waiting for church to do everything. So these are areas we need to work on.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Dr. Stephen, for that. So please, you need to consult further for you to get clarity on how you can invest in Nigeria. The next question is from Stephen Olugbemi, Olugbenro, who says, or will you suggest to use a different charity formation approach based on your experience to be able to harness and thrive with all mentioned in your presentation, sir? So I don't know who is referring to now, whether it's referring to Mr. Akintoye's presentation or to Dr. Stephen Akintayo's presentation. He says, will you suggest to use a different charity formation approach based on your experience to be able to harness and thrive with all mentioned in your presentation? I think he's referring to Mr. Somi Akintoye.
It's the same question.
I think okay. Mr. Barry, you keep
okay, I apologize. I apologize.
No,
Okay.
I think I've answered him. It's the same question. I've answered him.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Okay, so one more question. It says, are you able to share? Okay, no, it's asking if we can share the slides. One more question. It says, good evening, sir. God will keep blessing you, sir. Sir, please, how can we? Okay, we'll get you the link for the ebook. We will create a WhatsApp group for this program, and then we'll drop the link there for the free ebook that Dr. Stephen has given to you, so you can just click on it and download it. That will be done shortly. Okay, so another question from Charles Udim. He says, how do we register a new church in Canada? He's asking, how do we register a new church in Canada? So, Mr. Adeoke, you want to take a tip on that?
My decision is UK, so I don't know much about Canada, but there are loads of pastors across Canada that you can reach out to that can help you with information like this. And just put together a good email. Churches that are easy to just give you that information on what you need to do if you're trying to set up. Just find a pastor that you can just reach out to with your plans and they will give you an answer.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That one is from Wambuze, Jeremiah. He says, hello, sir. Please permit to suggest that we can have a WhatsApp group exclusively for pastors so that we can learn possibly a physical event or retreat, because one day is not enough, sir. We need more knowledge on this, obviously. Of course, we can have a full-fledged program on this for pastors, but I think Dr. Stephen will make it a paying program this time so that you can really get full benefits on this program. Okay. I think that is it. Let me see. Okay. From Omoni Abuola, says, please kindly send me a WhatsApp, okay, on how to own landed property in the UK. It's asking to send how to own landed property in the UK. I think that is a question is asking.
Okay, so Mr. Sami is, I don't know, maybe his network cut him off.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but I think he's back. Mr. Sami, are you there?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
someone is asking how to
it's
own a
asking.
landed property in UK. Let me allow you answer it. Probably give you
Or the different ways that you can obviously buy the many land opportunity, but you need to understand what the land is for. Are you buying a land for land banking? Are you buying a land to develop? Are you buying a land to build? So those are the things you want to understand. We can help with inquiries like that. We have to understand what's the objective of what you're buying the land for, because land is expensive in the UK.
Okay. So still on a question for you, sir, is from Stephen. Okay, I think Olugbenro, it says for a new church starting in the UK, what is your suggestion for raising startup fund and getting the right venue?
For a new church, it's just important to one, understand your vision. I always tell most pastors starting a ministry, what's the vision of the church? And when you start to build your vision, you're selling the vision to people that would be part of your church. What are you trying to achieve as a new church? What is something different that God has laid in your heart that you're bringing to the ministry? There are many churches, but if God calls you, God would always equip you to support what you intend to do. But you have to also be careful about why are you going into ministry. So those things are very important so that you don't go into ministry struggling, because if you have the understanding of why God has called you, it won't be a struggle. Members will come to support. And the person that's giving you the vision, which is God, would always make the provision. And we can always support in finding you spaces. And I can also advise you on what you need to do to understand how to set up and whatever you need to do as a new church.
Okay, so one more question for you, sir. This is from Victor Onoja. He says, sir, please, what do you suggest for churches who rent locations and the advice on the kind of locations to rent in terms of being strategic?
So as a new church, if you're trying to build, you need to rent. So renting is key, but it's also important to rent in areas where it's closer to where majority of your members are. So it's easy for you to grow. Once you have the understanding of that location is key for churches, and also the budget you have, it becomes easy for you to then start to look at, rather than having to rent, you can be looking at the opportunity of buying. But renting is the first thing you have to do as a new church.
Okay, one more question, sir. It says, please, how can
Let me just
cooperative...
let me add a little to that. I
sir.
also think that while you are renting and you're growing, you must be open to the fact that the ultimate growth, particularly in places like Africa, where there is no limit to the number of growth, right? You must be open to the fact that the ultimate growth really is sometimes moving out of the city center, right? So, for example, you need to put on your video, Mr. Sami, we can't see you. Because, for example, there is no way we could have seen the growth Redeem is having today if Daddy Gio had not been willing to, to move to Redeem Camp, right? We will not be seeing the growth Winners Chapel has today if they didn't go to the Bush of Water. Even though typically you won't like it, like Bishop Oedipo said, even will have turned back if not that the day was going to check Canaan land, they were in convoy. Because just for why will you take us from Rajoba to this thick forest? So I think ministries that have vision to grow big must know that at some point you will need to be almost like out of the city center, right? So which is where land banking comes in. So why not start saying where exactly will this location likely be? How do we begin to early enough, right? Even if it's not that you move, maybe you need to have a campground somewhere where all the churches can come together and things like that. So you must have that foresight to early begin to acquire somewhere, that was cheaper, and that you can, over time own hundreds of acres, if not thousands of acres. That would be my advice while you are still renting. There must be that long-term vision.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Stephen. So I take one more question for you, sir. Says, I recently just graduated from the university, but very much now interested in real estate in order to help my church. What advice can you give on? And this is for Dr. Stephen, sir.
I'm not sure I got that question.
Okay, it's saying I recently just graduated from the university, but very much now interested in real estate in order to help my church. So it's asking that what advice can you give on starting up on this journey? Real estate in order for him to help his church.
You need to help yourself first before helping your church. Because I see all of, we often make this mistake. I mean, two poor people cannot help themselves. One has to get to the top before he can throw the rope to help. There are current areas you can help, which has a lot to do in, the area of service in the kingdom of God, and being a faithful member. But you need to first think of real estate for yourself. And when you've built a good real estate business, now you can buy a whole land and build churches and donate it to your ministry and you can go that route. But the beginning is you learning about real estate work, building your own real estate empire, and then at some point being able to help the ministry.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Stephen, for this wonderful question and answer session. And we have come to the end of this 2-hour session on real estate investment for pastors. If you want to get
if that's for me, can drop his details, right? Website, phone number, social media handle, and all of that, because I'm sure many people would love to connect.
Okay. Okay, so that will be done. Before that is done, I can also say that we have a full version of this program for churches, but it will be a paid event. We'll send you the link. So if you want to register for the full version, the link will be dropped on the chat on the WhatsApp group. So please make sure you join the WhatsApp group, and then we'll be getting in more information to you on the WhatsApp group on the day and month and time for the full version of this program. All right, so before we finally leave, can you please share with me on the chat box, each of you, just one key lesson that you have taken from this session? Okay, so please go to the chat box and share with me just one key lesson, okay? Anthony said, I got value from my time. Many thanks to Dr. Stephen. Okay, that's good. So let's share on the chat box. Let's share on the chat box. Okay, I want you to see on the chat box value that you have gotten from this program today. Okay, I'm waiting to see, I'm waiting. Okay, Lucky says, understanding the business wing of the ministry. Okay, that's beautiful. All right, so let's keep sharing. Let's keep sharing. Let's keep sharing. Oh, Matthew Yusuf says, a great lesson and secrets unveiled. Okay. G1 is now F1. Okay, that's good. Working with local authority. Okay. Another one, Oluchi Lovett says, I learned a lot about how real estate works. Okay. And then from Stephen Olubemiro says, valuable. I'm having to change everything I did in regards to charity formation and registration. Okay, from Olusheyi, it's an insight for ministry assets on properties. All right, from Omoniyi, he says, thank you, sir, Dr. Stephen Akintayo, great opportunity in the UK. Good. From Charles Odim, it says, I got value, thank you, sir. All right, from Austin, it says, I sincerely appreciate the program, great exposition on church ministry and business investment. Okay, Ty Solomon says, I am blessed. All right, and one more, Anthony says, one key lesson value I've gotten today is that it is very impossible to be in ministry and still get it right financially. That's wonderful. From Mike Yondo says that ministries should think real estate. Okay, thank you very much for sharing your valuable lessons from this session. Is there any last word from Dr. Stephen and first speaker before we call it a day? Any last words, sir?
Let's have Mr. Sonmi go first, and then I will give my.
No, thank you, Dr. Stevie, for having me. Great insight. And I think for me, it's the important thing is be a doer. Just whatever you've learned from this session today, don't waste it. Just make sure you apply the knowledge. And the books are also there from Dr. Stephen to learn. So just grab a copy of those books. Information are always in books like that. So it's important to order books like that and just put yourself into the application of the wisdom we've learned today so that in another 1 year time, we can be seeing you as a maybe Dr. Stephen or someone like me. So you have the opportunity of even becoming greater because we have made mistake, we've learned from mistake, and you have people like us to help you and give you more insight on what you can do better. And praying that God's grace on everyone so that we can all do exploit for what God has called us to do. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much.
Now, time Mr. Sonmi for coming and sharing valuable insight. I've gotten some of you asking recording, so we stream these events simultaneously on Facebook and on YouTube. So if you go to my YouTube page, Dr. S. Akintayo, you can get the recording. Is there already. We had a lot of people watch on Facebook and YouTube while we're here. So it wasn't just those of you on Zoom that watched this. So you can always go to the YouTube and you get the recording easily. Someone said, can we add guests from Canada? Again, when it comes to investment, you can be in Canada and invest in UK. You can be in US and invest in Canada. So there's no barrier to the things like this. You can be a ministry in Nigeria and yet be investing in the US or in UK. So there's nothing that stops you from sharing informations like this to any pastor in the world, because these things can work anywhere in the world. It can work in Zambia, can work in Kenya, right? There may be little terminology, change in terminologies, but real estate investment is real estate investment. Land banking is land banking. Buying properties, changing the purpose and all of those things is a global thing. So what we've taught you today is not just a UK thing or a US thing. It's a global, practicable strategy. So Dr. Ezra Akintayo on YouTube, you can subscribe and watch the entire presentation today. My final word is, I believe God has called you to do great exploit for him. But you see, just the same way it takes money to run romance, it takes, money without, and anointing without money leads to annoyance. And so you have to structure your finances well. And trust me, and I've seen ministers where you know that this one has gotten to a place of annoyance, right? A lot of what we call extortion by pastors, sometimes just the pastor is financially really under stress, right? And it calls for manipulation and things like this. But these are things you can learn. The Holy Spirit can open you up to how to structure your finances, that of the ministry, in a way that people can come and worship God without pressure, without any coercion. And I think it's ministries like that that people give more to, right? It's ministries like that that people want to attend more. If you notice that pastors would do well on their own financially, if you notice, members want to attend their church because they're even the one adding value to members. They're the ones giving, because they also understand finance work. They also understand business work. And that's one of the amazing thing that Dr. Bill Winston Ministry has done. He's one of the few pastors in the Pentecostal that you not see anybody drag. I don't know whether people have noticed, right? You never hear that Dr. Bill Winston was dragged for asking member to donate for private jet or for one thing, because the way he structured the ministry was such that the ministry was, financially solid. The ministry has so many assets, and so yes, he lives the best of life. Oh, trust me, it's not, but because it's not as if you are putting pressure on members for those things, it makes it easy for members to come and just worship their God without any pressure, without any coercion. So that would be my advice to our ministers and men of God. Finally, is also humility, to be willing to learn. We all don't have it all. We all don't know it all. The same way in ministries, some ministers are more gifted in the area of healing. Some ministers are evangelists. Some ministers are teachers. The same way in life. No one person has it all. So I could be a pastor with so much anointing, and there's somebody somewhere, he may even be younger than I do, may not carry the fire I carry, but God has anointed him when it comes to the subject of money, finance, his humility to go and learn. And I will wrap up with this story of one of strong members in TD Jakes church. And she had this friend of hers, this guy, let me just put it this way. He's done business in billions of dollars. And when she told TD Jakes, because she attended TD Jakes church, that, her friend, TJ said, I would like to have dinner with him. True story. This is a true life story. So at the dinner, TJ looked at the man and said, people like you are rare in my circle. He said, I'm in a circle where I am like the richest. He said, it's the reason why I've come to meet you. In fact, while they were in that meeting, the guy got an alert for $400 million that he showed TD Jakes life. TJ said, yes, I need mentorship from people like you. It's people like you I want to, because this money game, we have to take to the next. And this guy is not even a born-again Christian, right? And I see particularly African pastors, right, not as a bit humility to be willing to learn about this subject of what TD Jakes did right there. You hardly can find many African pastors do that. To say, I'm willing to learn. This is my field. I'm a pastor. I'm called. but this other area, I'm willing to learn, right? And I'm praying that God will give all of us the humility to be willing to learn. And God bless you all. And thank you once again. And God bless you all.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Stephen Akintayo. Thank you very much, Mr. Akintoye, for wonderful sessions. Please, let's give them a round of applause again. Come on. Yes, gotten value, round of applause. Thank you very much. So please make sure you register, you register, and then you are on the WhatsApp group. I'm going to drop in a lot of information. The link for the free ebook that Dr. Stephen Akintayo has given you will be dropped on the WhatsApp group, so you can click on the link and then download the ebook. The other books there that are going to be useful for you, you also have to pay for them. So we also drop in the payment portal where you can do that. So Mr. Jamio, please drop in the
They still don't
link for the WhatsApp group.
They still don't have the WhatsApp group. People are asking. I don't know why it's not.
Hello, Jamio on the call. Please drop the link now for the WhatsApp group. Where is Choma? Please drop the link now for the WhatsApp group so people can register on the call right away. Okay. Mr. Jamio, are you on the call there? Please drop the link now for the WhatsApp group. Okay, so that's it there. So please go to the chat box now. The link has been dropped. So please click on that link now and then register so your name will be on the WhatsApp group. We are also going to drop in other information to purchase the full copies of the book. Yeah, the link will be dropped there. Also, the link to contact Mr. Let me see if I can share it, to contact Mr. Adegoke is also here. Let me see if I can share it and drop it here for you to see. Okay, so you also have the link there. You want to contact Mr. Adegoke, you can also do that on the link there. All right, thank you very much. That's it from Mr. Adegoke. It's already there. You can also please link and contact him via this link on the chat. Okay, so please make sure all of you click on the WhatsApp group now and join the group, because vital information will be dropped in there. The time and date for the full-fledged program, paid program, will also be dropped on this group. So we'll send on this group, on WhatsApp group, the link for you to register on time. And if you register on time, you will get a good discount for the full-fledged part of this program. It's going to be very, very expository. I can tell you, what you got today is just a tip of the iceberg. So don't miss out. Click on the link, register on the WhatsApp group, and make sure that your name is fully on there. All right. Thank you very much for signing in for this program. And we look forward to seeing you in the full-fledged program for real estate investment for pastors. And don't forget, you don't have to be a pastor to be part of this program. You can be a business person. And please also invite other pastors, invite other ministers. Okay? Share the link with other pastors and other ministers to also join, so they can benefit from this massive, explosive teaching on real estate investment for pastors. Thank you very much. I will love you. I want to see you again in the full-fledged program. Have a wonderful evening, Nigerian time. Wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful afternoon. And then God bless you. See you again. Bye. Bye for now. Thank you.
To GTEx Land, where every corner is a masterpiece waiting to be discovered. Step into the serenity of Jasper Estate, your haven in Ibeju Lekki. Feel the sand beneath your feet at Beryl Beachfront Estate, your coastal retreat. Experience the charm of Sardius Farm City Estate, where nature and community blend seamlessly in AP. Discover elegance at Sardius Estate in Ijebu Ode, where modern living meets tradition. Live in luxury at Beryl Fortis City, Kurudu's premier destination for urban living. Find your dream home at Prime Rose Estate, where sophistication meets comfort in Ibeju Lekki. Experience luxury living at Sardius Estate in Port Harcourt, where every detail is designed for your comfort. Escape to tranquility at Jasper Estate in Isheri, your peaceful sanctuary. Discover perfection at Sardius Estate in Guzape, Abuja, where luxury meets lifestyle. Indulge in elegance at Beryl Polo Estate in Asaba, where every moment is a celebration. At Gtexland, we don't just sell properties, we secure your future. Welcome to your new beginning.
Hi, great investors, and my name is Jessica Martins. We welcome you to Beryl Beachfront Estate. Today is our office launch. Are you excited about that?
I'm super excited here. There's so many things you want to learn about this location.
Today, we are here to show the latest developments to our smart investors who bought into this Beryl Beachfront years ago.
For us to move to site, that shows the level of integrity, because we value integrity and it's one of our core value.
For you, the smart investor who bought into this place that was once a bush, guess what today? You have an estate close to the very popular, coastal road that is just passing through your estate. I know what a property that is close to a major road, what it means. Now, we had smart investors who invested in this property at 1.5 million. As I speak to you today, on average, we're talking about over 500% return on investment guaranteed. Last time we sold, we're selling at about how much?
About 50 million the last time.
Imagine the return on investment from 1.5 as at 2019, right? To now, this is 2024. Imagine the return on investment. It's massive. There is a beach, right? So it's just a stone throw.
It's an exclusive offer, and for the first 10 people to call the number showing on the screen, you will be entitled to almost 50% discount on this property. So all you have to do is to call the number showing on your screen, and we'll secure a slot for you. Remember, you don't wait to buy.
You don't wait to buy land, you buy land and wait.
Remember, it's not far from the Dangote refinery. It's not far from the Lekki Free Trade Zone, Eleko Beach. It's important you note that it's payments that validate your slot. So call, take your slots, take in acres, because you see this coastal road, you're making money.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone.
Mr. Felix.
Yeah.
I have so many power. Le Baduse play Lamande. I have Santos and the Torias. I have Ramande. I have Abido Cheka. I have never touched those ones. I have Sepre. When it comes to power, I have Rebadu. I have Ganduka Gandusa. I have Ndaboski Baos.
In the world's foremost online wealth university, learn how to build your finances through several profitable businesses. Learn how to start and build a business into a successful global company. Learn how to trade Forex, stocks, and crypto in the financial market. You can learn how to build a real estate empire like Dr. Stephen Akintayo, and even learn about e-commerce, public speaking, and digital marketing. With our new state-of-the-art mobile app, creating wealth by gaining knowledge is even easier. You can now take your classes on the go and in multiple languages, interact with tutors, join an ongoing discussion, and expand your horizons. Download the Stephen and Kintayo University app today and start your journey to financial freedom.
Door.